Mom, we don't need you anymore. Those 6 words slipped from my daughter Caroline's lips as if they were the most natural thing in the world, as if the last 30 years of my life had meant nothing. Today, I'm going to tell you something I never thought I'd tell. And if you, for just a second, feel like this sounds familiar, I only ask that you leave a like and subscribe. It will help me to keep unburdening myself. My name is Elizabeth Miller. I'm 67 years old and I lived, in a small apartment in Astoria, Queens. Until 3 days ago, I thought I had a family that loved me. But on Wednesday morning, as I was sipping my coffee in the kitchen I'd been cleaning for 30 years, I received a text message that destroyed everything I thought I knew about my life. It was from Caroline, my eldest. A voice memo, barely 40 seconds long, that left me trembling like an autumn leaf. Mom, I already talked to Daniel and Dad. We decided we don't need you to come over anymore. The kids are older now, and you can't do things like you used to. It's better if you just take it easy at home. I dropped my mug. Coffee spilled all over the yellow Formica table I'd bought at Target back when Caroline still called me Mommy and begged me to read her bedtime stories. My hand shook as I played the message again. Maybe I'd misheard. Maybe my 67-year-old ears had played a trick on me. But no. Every word was like a stab wound. I sat down in the wicker chair where I'd spent so many mornings ironing my children's clothes, packing snacks for my grandkids, hemming school uniforms when money was too tight to buy new ones. The same chair where I had cried in silence when my husband, Anthony, left me for a woman 20 years younger, taking not only his love, but also the house where we'd raised our children. The apartment suddenly felt smaller. The cream-colored walls I had painted myself last year looked grimy in the morning light. The picture frames with photos of my grandchildren, Alex, 12, and Sophia, 9, watched me from the sideboard like silent witnesses to my humiliation. How many times had I canceled my own plans to look after those kids? How many times had I spent my $800 Social Security check on toys for their birthdays, on medicine when they were sick, on new clothes when they grew faster than Caroline could afford to buy? I remembered the week before. Caroline had called me on Monday morning with that honey-sweet voice she only used when she needed something. Mommy, would you mind staying with the kids all week? Daniel has a training conference in Chicago and I have to work overtime at the office. You know how things are with the economy. Of course, I said yes, like always. I canceled my doctor's appointment to check my blood pressure. I postponed the trip to see my sister Patricia, who had been asking me for months to come visit her in Cleveland. I gave up the pottery class at the senior center that I was so excited about. For 5 days, I got up at 6 in the morning to make breakfast for Alex and Sophia. I walked them to school, a 15-minute walk under the scorching July sun, because Caroline had sold her car and Daniel took his to work. I picked them up in the afternoon, helped them with their summer homework, made them snacks, always Oreos with milk, their favorite, gave them their baths, and stayed with them until they fell asleep. Sophia had fallen at the park on Tuesday and scraped her knee. She cried in my arms as I cleaned the wound with hydrogen peroxide and put a Paw Patrol Band-Aid on it. Grandma, can I have a kiss to make it better? She'd asked with those big brown eyes that reminded me so much of Caroline when she was little. Alex, who already thought he was too old for cuddles, had asked for help with his math. Grandma, you know more than my parents, he whispered as I explained fractions to him at the dining room table. On Friday night, when Caroline got home from work, I had already cleaned the whole house, done the grocery shopping for the weekend, and left dinner ready. My feet ached so much I could barely walk, but I smiled when I saw her walk through the door. Everything okay, Mommy? Everything's perfect, sweetie. The kids were angels. Not a thank you. Not a kiss. Not even a glance that lasted more than 2 seconds. Just, oh, okay. Well, you can head out, right? We have plans tomorrow. And now, 3 days later, that message. That social death sentence. I dialed Caroline's number. I needed to hear her voice, needed her to explain what I had done wrong. Hello? Her tone was cold, impatient. Caroline, it's me, your mother. Oh, hey. What's up? What's up? What do you mean, what's up? You sent me a message saying you don't need me anymore. A silence. On the other end of the line, I could hear the TV, the sound of cartoons, Life going on as if my world hadn't just ground to a halt. Yeah, well, we talked it over as a family, and we think it's time for you to have your own life. The kids don't need so much attention anymore, and well, you're getting older, Mom. We don't want you to get tired. Tired? My voice broke. When have I ever told you I was tired? That's not it, Mom. It's better this way. Everyone in their own space. Caroline, I don't understand. Did I do something wrong? Did I say something that upset you? Another silence. Longer this time. No, Mom. It's not necessary anymore. And she hung up. I stood there, phone in hand, listening to the steady dial tone that marked the end of a conversation and, though I didn't know it then, the end of the life I had known for 30 years. Outside, New York City kept its relentless pace. Cars sped down the avenues, people headed to their jobs, their appointments, their lives full of purpose. And I was there, in my small kitchen, discovering that I was no longer necessary to anyone. The apartment had never been so quiet. I couldn't bring myself to leave the house that afternoon. I just sat on the couch, staring at the photos scattered across the coffee table. 30 years of my life reduced to glossy pieces of paper that no one wanted to see anymore. Caroline at 5, in the white dress from her first communion that I had hand-embroidered over 3 months. I worked nights at a food processing plant and sewed those tiny pearls on one by one during the day, because I wanted her to be more beautiful than the other girls. I remember how my fingers bled from the needle pricks, but when I saw her walk toward the altar, it had all been worth it. Daniel at 7, the day I took him to the hospital when he broke his arm. Anthony was busy at work, though I later found out he was busy with Marisol, his secretary. I took 3 buses to get to Mount Sinai with Daniel crying in my arms. We waited 4 hours in the emergency room. When they finally saw him, Daniel clung to my neck and said, "Mom, don't leave me alone." I never left him alone. Never. And now what? I dialed Daniel's number. I needed to hear his side, needed to believe that my younger child, my baby, couldn't possibly agree with this. "Mom, I already talked to Caroline. I think it's for the best." "For the best? Daniel, do you also think I'm in the way?" "It's not that, Mom. It's just, look, we have our own lives, our own routines, and you need to start having your own." "My routine? Do you know what my routine has been for the last 30 years? Waking up thinking about you, going to sleep worrying about you, spending my savings on you." "Mom, please don't be dramatic. Nobody asked you to do that. Nobody asked me to do that." Those words stabbed into my chest like broken glass. Nobody asked me to be their mother? Nobody asked me to raise them when their father walked out? Nobody asked me to work 2 jobs to pay for their college education? "Daniel, do you remember when you had pneumonia when you were 15? "Mom, do you remember? You were in the hospital for 3 weeks. I slept in a plastic chair next to your bed. I didn't move from there, not even to change my clothes. The nurses brought me coffee and told me to go home and rest, but I couldn't leave you. That was a long time ago, Mom. A long time ago? Do you remember what you told me when you were discharged? You grabbed my hand and said, 'Mom, when I grow up, I'm going to take care of you just like you took care of me.' Do you remember that, Daniel?" Silence. "I have to go, Mom. I'm at work." And he hung up. I stood there, phone in hand, feeling something inside me break. Something that had been cracking for years, but was only now completely fracturing. I went to the bedroom and opened the closet. In the back, under the blankets I never used anymore, was the shoebox where I kept all the memories. Letters, drawings, photographs. Little treasures I had collected like an archaeologist of my own life. I pulled out a wrinkled letter. It was from Caroline, written when she was 16 and had a fight with me for coming home late. "Dear Mom, I know you were mad at me yesterday, but I want you to know that you're the best mom in the world. I'm sorry for yelling at you. I'm sorry for saying mean things. When I grow up, I want to be just like you. I love you more than anything in the world. Your daughter who adores you, Caroline." The handwriting was round, childish, full of hearts drawn in the margins. There were tear stains, mine, on the yellowed paper. I found another letter, this one from Daniel, from Mother's Day 10 years ago. "Mom, I don't know how to thank you for everything you've done for us. Dad left, but you stayed. You worked twice as hard so we wouldn't lack anything. You gave us love when you didn't know where to find any for yourself. You're our hero. One day I'm going to give you everything you deserve. Your son who admires you, Daniel. What had happened? At what point had these children who wrote me love letters turned into adults who saw me as a burden? I pulled out more photos. Daniel on his graduation day, in the suit I bought him with the money I'd saved to get my teeth fixed. Caroline on her wedding day, in the dress we picked out together at a thrift store in Brooklyn. But on her, it looked like couture. In every photo, there I was. Always in the background, always smiling, always proud. The mother who cheered from the sidelines, who held the jackets, who carried the bags, who took care of the details so they could shine. When had I stopped shining? The phone rang. It was an unknown number. Mrs. Miller? Yes, this is she. This is the nurse's office at Northwood Elementary. Your grandson Alex had a small accident at school. Nothing serious, but we need a family member to come pick him up. My heart stopped. Is he okay? What happened? He fell during recess and hit his head. We've already checked him out, it's not serious, but per protocol, we need someone to come get him. I'm on my way. Have you called his parents? Yes, but we can't reach them. You're listed as the emergency contact. Of course I was the emergency contact. I was the grandmother who was always available, the one who never had plans more important than her grandchildren. I took the subway to the school. In the train car, as Queens blurred past the windows, I thought about all the times I had rushed to hospitals, schools, parks, whenever my children or grandchildren needed me, and now they were telling me I wasn't necessary. I arrived at the school and saw Alex sitting in the nurse's office, a small bandage on his forehead. When he saw me, his eyes lit up. Grandma, you came to get me? Of course, my love. How are you feeling? Fine. My head hurt, but it's better now. Where are Mom and Dad? They're working, sweetie, but I'm here now. I hugged him and felt him relax in my arms. This 12-year-old boy who acted so grown up still needed his grandma when he was scared. Grandma, why don't you come over so much anymore? The question pierced me like an arrow. What do you think, Alex? Do you think you don't need me anymore? He thought for a moment, with that seriousness kids sometimes have. I still need you, Grandma. When you're there, everything is calmer, and you cook better than Mom. I laughed despite the pain in my chest. Don't tell your mother that. I already did. And she got mad. Of course she got mad. Caroline never knew how to cook. I was the one who made her favorite meals every time she visited. I was the one who knew by heart how she liked her coffee, what TV shows she watched, what calmed her down when she was stressed. But apparently I wasn't necessary anymore. I took Alex home. In the cab, he fell asleep with his head on my shoulder. He smelled of kids' shampoo and that sweet scent children have. I thought of all the afternoons we had spent together, the stories I had read to him, the pictures we had drawn, the times I had dried his tears. Did none of that matter anymore? When we got to Caroline's apartment, she was waiting at the door, her face etched with worry. How is he? What happened? He's fine, just a little bump. Caroline took Alex in her arms, but he looked at me over his mother's shoulder. Grandma, are you coming over tomorrow? Before I could answer, Caroline cut in. Alex, we already talked about this. Grandma is very busy with her own things, but I want her to come. We'll see, sweetie. Caroline looked at me with a forced smile. Thanks for coming, Mom. I'll take it from here. And she closed the door. I stood there in the hallway, listening as she explained to Alex that he couldn't see me tomorrow because they had other plans. I walked down the stairs slowly, feeling each step take me further away from what had been my world for so many years. On the street, I sat on a bench and cried. I cried for all the years I had given without expecting anything in return. I cried for the mother I had been, and who was apparently no longer good enough. I cried for the grandmother her grandchildren asked for, but whose parents no longer wanted around. And for the first time in my life, I asked myself, what about Elizabeth? What had happened to the woman who existed before she became the mother of, the grandmother of, the one who's always available? Where was I in all of this? The following days were a silent torture. Every morning I woke up hoping the phone would ring, that Caroline would call to apologize, to tell me it was all a misunderstanding. that of course they needed me. But the phone didn't ring. On Friday morning, while I was drinking my coffee black, I didn't feel like adding milk anymore. I saw Mrs. Rodriguez from the 4th floor out the window. She was carrying grocery bags and struggling with the keys to the building's main door. I went down to help her, as I always did. "Oh, Elizabeth, you're a saint. My kids tell me I shouldn't carry so much weight, but if I don't do it, who will?" "Your children are right, Mrs. Rodriguez. You should ask them for help." She laughed bitterly. "Ask for help? My Joaquin lives in California and comes once a year for Christmas. My Angela is too busy with her job and her friends. Says she has enough of her own problems to worry about mine." Her words sounded familiar. All too familiar. "And you, Elizabeth? How are your grandchildren? I haven't seen them around here lately." I fell silent. How could I explain that I no longer saw them because I was apparently in the way? "They're fine. You know, kids these days are so busy with their own things." Of course. That's what my Angela tells me about her kids. They're busy, as if we weren't busy when we were raising them. We rode the elevator together. When I got to my floor, I stood in the hallway for a moment, thinking about Mrs. Rodriguez's words. How many women my age were living through the same thing? How many mothers and grandmothers had been discarded like old furniture that no longer matches the decor? That afternoon, I decided to go to Central Park. I needed air. I needed to see life. I needed to remember there was a world beyond my silent apartment. I sat on my favorite bench, near the pond. It was the same bench where I had taken Caroline and Daniel when they were little. The same one where I had fed ducks with my grandkids on Sunday mornings. I watched families walk by. Young parents pushing strollers, grandparents chasing after shrieking grandchildren, mothers taking pictures of every moment as if they were unique treasures. And then I saw her. Carolyn was there, with Alex and Sophia. But she wasn't alone. There was an older woman with them, an elegant lady with dyed blonde hair and expensive clothes. The kids called her Grandma Carol and laughed with her as she bought them helium balloons. I froze. That woman was Daniel's mother, the other grandmother, the one who lived in Scarsdale, in a house with a yard, the one with money and time to take the kids to fancy places. I watched them from a distance, hiding behind a tree like a pathetic spy. Sophia ran to the woman and hugged her with the same joy she used to hug me. Alex was showing her something on his new phone, which she had obviously bought for him, while Caroline smiled and took pictures of them. I had been replaced. They hadn't just decided they didn't need me. They had decided they needed me less than her. I walked home with trembling legs and a shattered heart. In the elevator, the tears started falling before I could control them. A neighbor riding up with me asked if I was okay, but I could only nod without speaking. Once inside, I dialed Caroline's number. This time I didn't care if she was busy. "Hello? Caroline, it's me." "Oh, Mom, I can't talk right now. We're at the park." "I know. I saw you." Silence. "What do you mean you saw us?" "You were in Central Park. With Daniel's mother. With the other grandmother." "Mom, it's not what you think." "Oh, no? Then what is it?" "Because what I see is that you've swapped one grandmother for another." "Mom, please don't make a scene." "A scene? You think it's a scene that after 30 years of taking care of this family, I find out I have a replacement?" "She's not a replacement. It's just that Carol, Daniel's mom, also has a right to be with her grandkids." "Of course she has a right. What hurts is that for her to be there, I have to disappear." "Nobody said that." "Oh, no. Then tell me, Caroline, when was the last time you invited me to be with you? When was the last time you told me you needed me?" "Mom, we've been over this. You need to have your own life." "My own life was you. For 30 years, my own life was you." "Well, maybe that was the mistake." Her words were like a punch to the gut. "What did you say?" "I said maybe that was the mistake, Mom. We never asked you to give up your life for us." "Give up my life? Caroline, you were my life. You were the most important thing I had." "Well, it shouldn't have been that way." The line went dead. I stood there, phone in hand, feeling something definitively break inside me. It wasn't my heart. My heart had already broken days ago. It was something deeper. It was my faith in unconditional love. It was my belief that being a good mother meant something. I went to the bathroom and looked in the mirror. The woman looking back at me was a stranger. She had deep wrinkles around her eyes, worry lines on her forehead, messy gray hair. When had I gotten so old? When had I stopped caring about how I looked? Give up my life? I said aloud to the mirror. Give up my life? I opened the medicine cabinet and took out all the bottles. Pills for my blood pressure, for cholesterol, for arthritis, for sleep. A complete pharmacy to keep a body running that no one valued anymore. Why was I taking such good care of myself if no one cared whether I was well or not? On Saturday morning, I decided to do something I hadn't done in years. I went to the movies alone. I bought a ticket for a French romance, the kind Anthony found boring and my kids found too slow. In the line for popcorn, I overheard an older couple arguing. Why do we always have to come alone? Why can't the grandkids come? Because they're busy with their own things, Mary. I already told you. They used to come with us everywhere. They were little then. Now they have their own lives. I sat in the back row with my popcorn and soda, feeling ridiculous. A 67-year-old woman alone at the movies on a Saturday afternoon. Was this having my own life? The movie was beautiful. It was about a woman who had spent her whole life caring for others and who, at 70, decided to travel alone for the first time. In the end, she found love in Paris and discovered parts of herself she had forgotten. I cried through the whole film, not because of the story. I cried because I realized I wasn't like that brave woman on the screen. I didn't know who Elizabeth was without being a mother, without being a grandmother, without being the one who was always available for others. When I left the theater, the afternoon sun blinded me. New York was buzzing with life, tourists taking photos, couples drinking beers on patios, families strolling down the pedestrian streets. I walked aimlessly through my neighborhood. I passed the craft store where I bought thread to sew school play costumes, the bakery where I ordered the special gluten-free bread Sophia liked, the toy store where I had spent a fortune on birthdays and Christmases. Everything reminded me of the woman I had been, the mother who bent over backward to make others happy. And where had my happiness gone? I got home as night was falling. The building was quiet, all the families having dinner peacefully in their homes. I took the stairs because I was in no hurry to get anywhere. In my apartment, I turned on all the lights so it wouldn't feel so empty. I made a simple dinner, a cheese omelet and a salad. I ate in silence, with the evening news on in the background, listening to stories about wars and economic crises that seemed less painful than my own reality. After dinner, I took out an old notebook and a pen. I needed to write, to get everything that was suffocating me out of my head. I wrote, "What did I do wrong?" And underneath, I started a list. Loving them too much, sacrificing too much, not teaching them to value what they had, letting them take me for granted, forgetting about myself. I looked at the list and realized all the questions were about love, as if love was the mistake, as if being a good mother was the reason for my punishment. I tore the page into tiny pieces and threw them in the trash. No, I wasn't going to blame myself for loving them. I wasn't going to regret being the mother I thought they needed, but I also wasn't going to keep begging for love where it was no longer wanted. That night, for the first time in weeks, I slept soundly, and I dreamed of the woman from the French movie. I dreamed that I, too, was deciding to do something just for me. When I woke up, I had a strange sense of peace, as if something had shifted during the night, as if I had made a decision without realizing it. I didn't know what it was yet, but I could feel it there, growing in my chest like a seed waiting for spring to sprout. On Monday morning, I made the smallest and most revolutionary decision of my life. I didn't answer the phone when Caroline called. There it was, ringing insistently on the end table, while I drank my coffee and read the newspaper I'd bought for the first time in years. I used to just scan headlines on my phone, in between one chore and another, one call from my kids and the next. But that day, I wanted to take my time. I wanted to feel the paper between my fingers and read without rushing. The phone rang 12 times. It stopped. It rang again. I didn't pick up. Half an hour later, I got a text from Caroline. "Mom, are you okay? I've called you a bunch of times." I didn't reply. 2 hours later, another text. "Mom, I'm worried. Please answer me." I didn't reply to that one either. It was strange. For 30 years, I had run every time the phone rang, answered every message in under 5 minutes, been available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And now, For the first time, I had chosen not to be available. The feeling was both terrifying and liberating. At 3 in the afternoon, the doorbell rang. It was Caroline. I looked through the peephole. Her brow was furrowed and she was tapping her foot impatiently. I took a deep breath before opening the door. "Mom, why aren't you answering your phone? I thought something happened to you." "Nothing happened. I was busy." "Busy? Busy with what?" The question hurt more than it should have, as if it were impossible for me to have anything important to do. Reading the paper, drinking coffee, thinking. Caroline stared at me as if I'd just said I was building a spaceship. Thinking? About what? About a lot of things. She walked past me and went straight to the kitchen, as she always did. It was her territory, the place where she'd find me making food, washing dishes, organizing her life and her children's lives. "Is there coffee?" "No." "What do you mean, no? There's always coffee when I come over." "Not today." She just stared at me with an expression I'd never seen on her before. Confusion, irritation, and something deeper I couldn't identify. "Mom, what's wrong with you? You're acting so weird." "Nothing's wrong with me. I'm just not going to be available all the time anymore." "Available for what?" "For when you need me. For when you remember I exist. For when you want to offload your guilt by calling me." Caroline sat down in one of a kitchen chair and looked at me intently. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about how for a week you told me you didn't need me, that I should get my own life, and that's what I'm doing." "Mom, I never said we didn't need you." "Caroline, please. You sent me a message saying exactly that. And when I called you to ask what I'd done wrong, you hung up on me." She was quiet. For the first time in a long time, Caroline didn't have a quick comeback. I was stressed. Work, the kids. Daniel is always in a bad mood. And what does your stress have to do with me? Nothing, but... Exactly. Nothing. I have nothing to do with your stress, but I'm the one who has to pay the price. Caroline got up and started pacing the kitchen like a caged animal. "Mom, this is ridiculous. You're my mother. Of course I need you." "When?" "What? When do you need me? Because last week you told me the opposite. And 3 days ago I saw you in the park with Daniel's mother and the kids. All so happy, not missing me one bit." Caroline blushed. That was a coincidence. We ran into her there." "A coincidence? Caroline, do you really think I'm that stupid?" "No, Mom, but you just don't understand." "What don't I understand?" "That I have a right to spend time with other people too. That it can't be all about you all the time." Her words echoed in the kitchen. "All about me? Caroline, when has anything ever been about me? When, in these 30 years, have you ever done anything thinking about what I wanted or needed? All the time. You're always there, always have an opinion, always meddling." "Meddling? Calling to see how my grandkids are is meddling? Worrying when Alex has a fever is meddling? Taking care of them when you can't is meddling? It's suffocating. Always asking, always worrying, always wanting to know every little thing." I fell silent. Her words felt like slaps, but at the same time, they were revealing a truth I hadn't wanted to see. To Caroline, my love had been a burden, my concern, a nuisance, my availability, suffocating. "I see," I said very slowly. "What do you see?" "That what I thought was love, you felt as pressure." Caroline stopped pacing. Something in my tone must have alerted her. "Mom, I didn't say that. You didn't have to. You've said it all." I sat down in the chair where I had drunk my coffee that morning, the same chair where I'd received the message that changed everything, the same chair where I had cried for a week. "Caroline, I have a question for you." "What is it?" "Do you love me?" The question caught her off guard. "Of course I love you. You're my mother." "That's not an answer. You're my daughter. But that doesn't automatically mean you love me." "Do you love me as a person? Do you like who I am? Do you enjoy my company?" Caroline opened her mouth to answer, but nothing came out. The silence stretched on for an eternity. "You don't know what to say," I finally said. "I do know. It's a weird question." "It's not weird. It's the most normal question in the world. Do you love me, Caroline?" "I love you because you're my mother." "That's not love. That's obligation." Caroline sat down again. For the first time since she had arrived, she really looked at me. Not as an annoying mother or an available grandmother, She looked at me as a person. Mom, it's complicated. Why is it complicated? Because you've always been there. Always. And sometimes it feels like I can't breathe without you asking me if I'm breathing right. Her words hurt. But for the first time in my life, I understood something important. My love had been so intense, so total, so absolute, that it had become suffocating. And does Daniel feel the same way? Daniel's different. He doesn't talk about these things. But does he feel the same way? I think so. I got up and went to the window. Down on the street, life went on as usual. Cars, pedestrians, people with places to go, and people waiting for them. Caroline, do you know what the saddest part of all this is? What? That for 30 years I thought I was giving you the greatest gift in the world. Unconditional love, total availability, a mother who would never fail you. I turned to face her. And it turns out what you needed was a mother who knew when to leave. A mother who loved you enough to let you breathe. Caroline started to cry, silent tears running down her cheeks. Mom, I don't want you to leave. Oh, you don't? No, but I also don't want to feel like I owe you my life. You feel that way? Sometimes. Like everything you have has been for us. And that makes me feel guilty all the time. Guilty for what? For not being enough to justify so much sacrifice. Her words pierced me like a sword. My daughter felt guilty for being loved too much. When had love become a debt she couldn't repay? Caroline, I want you to go. What? Go. I need to be alone. Mom, we can't leave it like this. We're not leaving it like this. We're starting over from a different place. Caroline stood up slowly. At the door, she turned around. What's going to happen now? I don't know. But for the first time in 30 years, that uncertainty doesn't scare me. After she left, I sat in the kitchen until it got dark. I didn't turn on the lights. I didn't make dinner. I didn't watch TV. I just sat there, in the darkness, finally understanding something fundamental. I had raised my children to need me, when I should have raised them to be able to live without me. And now, at 67, I had to learn to live without them. But for the first time since this all started, the idea didn't terrify me. It intrigued me. That night, before going to bed, I took out a new notebook and wrote, Dear Elizabeth, tomorrow, your life begins. The life you never lived because you were too busy living for others. It's late, but not too late. It's never too late to start getting to know yourself. I closed the notebook and left it on my nightstand. Tomorrow, I would start to discover who Elizabeth Miller was when she didn't have to be anyone's perfect mother. On Tuesday morning, I did something I hadn't done in decades. I stayed in my pajamas until 11, not because I was sick or depressed, simply because I could. Because I didn't have to get up at 7 to make breakfast for anyone, didn't have to get dressed in a hurry to take the grandkids to school, didn't have to be presentable in case someone needed me. I made myself a breakfast I'd never made before. Toast with avocado, freshly brewed coffee from the Italian press I'd stored away since Anthony left, fresh squeezed orange juice. I sat at the dining room table, not in the kitchen like always, and put classical music on the radio. Vivaldi played softly as I buttered my toast and watched people hurrying to work out the window. For the first time in years, I had nowhere to be urgently. At noon, the phone rang. Daniel. I took a deep breath before answering. Good morning, Mom. Good morning, Daniel. Caroline told me what happened yesterday. Oh, really? And what did she tell you? That you're mad at us. I'm not mad. Then what's going on? Because Caroline said you said some really weird things to her. I got up and went to the balcony. The city stretched out before me like a sea of red brick buildings and bustling streets. I had lived here for 40 years. But how many times had I ever really stopped to look at it? Daniel, do you miss me? What? Do you miss me? It's been 2 weeks since you've seen me. Have you thought about me? There was a long pause. Of course I think about you, Mom. When? What do you mean when? When do you think about me? What day this week did you think, I wonder how Mom's doing? What day did you think about calling me without needing anything? Another silence. Mom, I don't get where you're going with this. I'm going to the fact that you told me you didn't need me anymore, and you've proven it's true. You've been perfectly fine without me for 2 weeks. That doesn't mean we don't love you. Oh no. Then what does it mean? It means we're adults, Mom. We have our own lives. Of course you're adults. I've known that for a long time. But being an adult doesn't mean you stop caring about the people you love. I do care about you. Really? When was the last time you asked me how I was feeling? Not about my health, not if I needed anything. When was the last time you were interested in Elizabeth? Not in the grandmother of your children. Daniel sighed on the other end of the line. Mom, what do you want me to say? Nothing, Daniel. I don't want you to say anything. I just wanted to know if you had noticed that for the last 2 weeks, I haven't existed for you. Of course you exist. Where? In what part of your lives do I exist that isn't when you need me for something? He didn't know what to say. Daniel, I have to go. I have things to do. What things? The question surprised me so much that I laughed. You know what, son? I don't even know myself. And that's the most exciting thing that's happened to me in years. I hung up before he could reply. That afternoon, I went to the bank. I had made a decision over breakfast while listening to Vivaldi and looking out over the city. Good morning. I'd like some information on savings accounts. The teller, a young woman with a professional smile, looked at me with the kind of patience reserved for older customers. Of course. Is this for you? Yes. And roughly what amount are you thinking of depositing? I took out the piece of paper where I had written my calculations. $8,000 to start. The woman's smile became more genuine. Perfect. Is this from your savings? It's money I've been spending on others for 30 years, and I've decided it's time to spend it on myself. The woman blinked, unsure how to respond to that. An hour later, I walked out of the bank with a new account. An account that only I knew about, that was only in my name, where every month I would deposit the amount I used to spend on gifts, on special meals when they came over, on things my children and grandchildren needed but never asked for directly. My Start Living Fund, I called it in my head. On Wednesday morning, I went to a travel agency. Good morning. I'd like some information on trips for one person. The agent, a middle-aged man who looked like he'd seen it all, gave me a warm smile. Of course. Did you have somewhere in mind? Canada. Montreal, specifically. For when? For next week. Next week? Yes. Is that too soon? No. It's just... Excuse me, are you traveling alone? Yes. And doesn't that scare you? I thought for a moment. You know what scares me? Dying without ever having done anything just for myself. Traveling alone doesn't scare me. It makes me curious. The man smiled differently this time. Well then, let's plan the best trip of your life. I left the agency with a train ticket to Montreal for the following Monday, a hotel reservation for 4 days, and a city guide that I started reading in a nearby cafe. It was the first time in my life I would be traveling completely alone. The first time I would go somewhere no one knew me, where no one expected anything from me, where I could just be Elizabeth. That same afternoon, Carolyn showed up at my house unannounced. When I opened the door, her eyes were red and she looked like she hadn't slept. Mom, we need to talk. Come in. She sat on the living room sofa and looked at me as if she were seeing a stranger. Is it true you told Daniel that you haven't existed for us for 2 weeks? It's true. Mom, that's not fair. What's not fair? Making us feel guilty because we have our own lives. I sat across from her in the armchair that had been Anthony's and was now mine. Caroline, I don't want to make you feel guilty. I want you to understand something very simple. I am a person too, not just your mother. Not just the grandmother of your children. I'm Elizabeth. And for 30 years, Elizabeth disappeared. And now what? You're going to punish us for that? I'm not going to punish you. I'm going to do something much more radical. I'm going to stop waiting for you. What does that mean? It means I'm going to stop being available all the time. I'm going to stop canceling my plans in case you need me. I'm going to start having plans of my own. Caroline looked at me as if I'd announced I was joining the circus. What plans? Next week, I'm going to Montreal. To Montreal? With who? Alone. Alone? Mom, you can't travel alone. Why not? Because you've never done it. Because you're older. Because anything could happen. Caroline, I'm 67, not 97, and anything could happen right here in Queens, too. But why Montreal? Because I've always wanted to see the old city. Because I love the idea of sitting in a French cafe. Because I've never sipped a coffee while looking at a city that feels like Europe. When did you ever like those things? Her question stopped me cold. She was right. When had I developed those interests? When had I decided I wanted to go to Montreal? I don't know, Caroline. Maybe I've always liked them, but I was too busy taking care of you to notice. Caroline was quiet for a moment. Mom, do you hate us? I don't hate you, but I'm not going to keep living my life waiting for you to love me the way I love you. We do love you. You love me as a mother, as the person who's always there when you need her. But you don't know me as Elizabeth. And who is Elizabeth? That's the exact question I'm going to Montreal to answer. Caroline got up from the sofa and started pacing the living room. You can't do this. Can't do what? Change like this all of a sudden. After 30 years, you can't just decide you don't want to be our mother anymore. I didn't say I don't want to be your mother. I said I want to be other things too. Like what? Like a woman who travels to Montreal alone. Like a person who takes her time in the morning. Like someone who has money saved for her own treats. What saved money? The money I've been spending on you for years. I calculated how much I spend a month on gifts for the kids, on special meals when you visit, on things I buy because I think you need them. $800 a month, Caroline. $800 that, from now on, I'm going to spend on myself. Caroline went pale. Mom, that money. We never asked you for it. I know. That's why it hurts so much. For years, I've spent $800 a month on love that nobody asked for and that, apparently, nobody valued. Caroline started crying again. We didn't know you felt that way. I know. Because you never asked. So, what's going to happen now? Now, I'm going to find out what it feels like to live for myself. Caroline headed for the door, but stopped. The kids are asking about you. Are they? Alex said he doesn't understand why you don't come over. Sophia asked me yesterday if you were mad at her. Those words cut through my chest. And what did you tell them? That you had things to do. Tell them Grandma isn't mad at them. Tell them Grandma is learning to love herself. How am I supposed to explain that to a couple of kids? Tell them that sometimes grown-ups need time to remember who they are when they're not taking care of other people. After Caroline left, I sat in my armchair and looked around the apartment. It didn't seem small anymore. It seemed full of possibilities. In 4 days, I would be in Montreal, walking down streets I didn't know, eating in restaurants where I'd have to ask for a table for one, sleeping in a hotel room that would hold only my things. For the first time in 30 years, I was going to be just Elizabeth, and I couldn't wait to meet her. On Friday night, as I was packing my suitcase for Montreal, the doorbell rang. It wasn't a visit. It was an invasion. Caroline, Daniel, and behind them, Daniel's mother, that elegant lady from the park, and even Anthony, my ex-husband, with his expensive tie and his air of superiority, untouched after 5 years of divorce. Can someone tell me what is going on here? Anthony said before I could even say hello. Hello, Anthony. What a surprise to see you after all this time. Caroline called me. She says you've lost your mind. That you're going to Montreal alone and you told them you won't watch the grandkids anymore. Caroline misunderstood. I haven't lost my mind. I've found it. Daniel's mother, Carol, stepped forward with that condescending smile she had always used on me. Elizabeth, dear, we understand you're feeling a little left out. It's normal at your age, but you can't punish the children for it. I'm not punishing anyone. Oh no? Daniel chimed in. Then why did Alex ask me yesterday if you don't love him anymore? Those words hit me like a hammer to the chest. Alex, my older grandson, that sensitive boy who worried about everyone. What did you tell him? I told him I didn't know what to say. Because I don't, Mom. I don't know what's wrong with you. Anthony took off his jacket and hung it on the coat rack as if he still lived there. All right, Elizabeth. Sit down. Let's talk about this like adults. I'm fine standing. Thanks. Caroline told me you said you won't be available for the family anymore. That's very selfish of you. Selfish? Yes, selfish. These kids need you. Do these kids need me, or do you need me to be available to take care of these kids? Anthony looked at me as if I'd said something incredibly stupid. It's the same thing. No, Anthony, it's not the same thing. Caroline sat on the sofa and started to cry. Mom, please. The kids don't understand what's happening. Sophia asked me yesterday if Grandma Elizabeth had died. And what did you tell her? No. But I didn't know what else to say. Because I don't understand what's going on with you. I took a deep breath. I had been preparing for this moment all week, but I never thought they would all come together, like a board of directors firing a problem employee. Can I ask a question? Of course, Daniel said. Do any of you know what day my birthday is? They looked at each other. Carol cleared her throat. It's in November? It's April 15th, 3 months ago. We called you, Caroline protested. You called me 5 days later. And only because my neighbor Mrs. Rodriguez saw you in the elevator and asked how the celebration was. Anthony grew impatient. Elizabeth, what does your birthday have to do with this? It has to do with the fact that for 30 years, I have remembered all of your birthdays, all of your important dates, all of your problems, but you can't even remember the day I was born. That's normal, Carol said. Children are always busier than their parents. Normal. Is it normal for you to come to my house and demand I go back to being the available grandma without even knowing how old I am? Caroline stopped crying and looked at me. How old did you turn, Mom? 67. 67. I thought it was 65. Caroline, that was 2 years ago. She fell silent. So did Daniel. For the first time since they'd arrived, they realized they truly knew nothing about me. Look, Anthony said, resuming his man-in-charge tone. This is all very emotional, but let's get to the facts. Elizabeth, you have 2 grandchildren who adore you. You have 2 children who, even if they're not perfect, love you. And you have a responsibility. What responsibility? The responsibility of being a grandmother, of being there when they need you. And what is your responsibility to me? What? What is your responsibility to me? Do I only have duties? Do I only have obligations? Elizabeth, don't be so dramatic. I'm not being dramatic. I'm asking a very simple question. What do you think you owe me as a daughter, as a son-in-law, as an ex-husband, as a person who has taken care of you for decades? Carol shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Well, respect, of course. Respect? Caroline, do you think you're treating me with respect when you tell me you don't need me anymore via a text message? Mom, I already explained I was stressed. Daniel, do you think you're treating me with respect when you hang up the phone every time I try to have a conversation with you that isn't about the kids? Daniel blushed. I don't hang up. You hang up. You all hang up. Emotionally and literally. Anthony stood up. All right, enough with the theatrics. Elizabeth, this is very simple. Either you go back to behaving like the grandmother you are, or we're going to have to take measures. What measures? The children won't see you until you come to your senses. Are you blackmailing me with my own grandchildren? I'm laying it out for you. I stared at him. This man who had cheated on me with his secretary, who had taken half our savings, who had disappeared from his children's lives for 2 years until it suited him to reappear as the father who had always been there. Anthony, do you know where I've worked for the last 10 years? What? Do you know where I work? Do you know what I do for a living? You work in an office. I work in a flower shop. My friend Patricia's flower shop in the village. I've worked there for 10 years. Caroline knows. Daniel knows. But you, who come here to threaten me with not seeing my grandchildren, have no idea. That's not important. No? It's not important to know the mother of your children? It's not important to know how the woman who raised your kids when you took off makes a living. Anthony's face turned red. I didn't take off. We had a mutual divorce. You left with Marisol. I was left with the kids, the bills, the problems. And now you're here to lecture me about responsibilities. Caroline stood up. Stop, Mom. Please. No, Caroline. I won't stop. For 5 years, I've kept my mouth shut so you two could have a normal relationship with your father. But I will not let him come into my house and blackmail me. I walked over to the cabinet and pulled out a folder I had been preparing all week. Do you know what this is? No, said Daniel. These are all the receipts for everything I've paid for you and the kids in the last 5 years. Clothes, toys, meals, field trips, school books, after-school classes. I opened the folder and pulled out the pages. $18,000, Caroline. $18,000 from my flower shop salary that I have spent on your family. Caroline went pale. Mom, we never asked you. You didn't ask directly, but every time Alex wanted brand name sneakers, every time Sophia needed a costume for a school play, every time, school play, every time you couldn't make ends meet, I was there. I held the papers out to Anthony. Here are all the receipts. If you're so concerned about the well-being of your grandchildren, here are 18,000 reasons to prove that I'm not the irresponsible one in this family. Anthony looked at the papers without taking them. Elizabeth, this is emotional blackmail. No, Anthony. Emotional blackmail is threatening a grandmother with not letting her see her grandchildren. This is documentation. Carol cleared her throat. Well, I think we're all a bit upset. Why don't we discuss this calmly? Carol, with all due respect, you have nothing to say in this conversation. Excuse me? You showed up at the park with my grandchildren when I had been pushed aside. You took my place without ever wondering why I wasn't there. Does that seem normal to you? I just thought you were busy. With what? What could a 67-year-old woman, who for 30 years has had no other occupation than her family, possibly be busy with? Carol fell silent. You know what? I said, closing the folder. You're all right about one thing. I'm too old for this drama. So I'm going to be very clear. I sat down in my armchair and looked at them, one by one. On Monday, I'm going to Montreal. When I get back, things are going to be different. Different how? Daniel asked. I will continue to be your mother and Alex and Sophia's grandmother. But I will be so on my terms. What terms? You will call me when you feel like talking to me, not when you need me for something. You will include me in your lives because you want me there, not because you need a free babysitter. And you will treat me like a person who has her own feelings, needs, and interests. And if we don't? Anthony challenged. If you don't, Anthony, you will find out what it really means not to have me available. I stood up and walked to the door. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to finish packing. My train to Montreal leaves tomorrow morning, and I'm going to spend 4 days doing exactly what I want, when I want, without explaining myself to anyone. Caroline walked towards me. Mom, please. Caroline, when I get back from Montreal, call me. But call me to ask how my trip was. Call me because you're curious to know what I've discovered about myself. Call me because you miss Elizabeth. Not because you need Grandma. They all stood in silence. And now please leave. I have a date with myself in Canada. One by one, they filed out. Anthony was the last. Elizabeth, this isn't going to end well. Anthony, this ended badly a long time ago. Now I'm just trying to make it end differently. I closed the door and leaned against it. For the first time in my life, I had set boundaries. For the first time, I had defended Elizabeth, and it felt terrifying and liberating all at once. But most of all, it felt like the beginning of something new. The train to Montreal left from Penn Station at 8:30 in the morning. I arrived an hour early, not because I was afraid of missing it, but because I wanted to savor every moment of what I was doing. I sat in the station cafe with my small suitcase. For the first time in decades, I had packed a bag just for me, with my clothes, my books, my indulgences, and ordered a coffee and a croissant. The waitress, a woman about my age with mahogany-dyed hair, smiled at me. Traveling alone? Yes. Good for you. I've always wanted to take a trip by myself. But my husband says, what's the point? If I want to travel, we should go together. And why don't you tell him to go wherever he wants by himself, and let you travel wherever you please? She laughed. Oh, honey, the things you say. At my age, you don't change your ways. At our age is exactly when we can change them the most. We don't have to explain ourselves to anyone anymore. She paused thoughtfully as she placed the croissant in front of me. You know what? You're right. The train was comfortable and nearly empty. I sat by the window and took out the book I had bought the week before, Women Who Run with the Wolves. I wasn't sure why I had chosen it, but the title had caught my eye. As New York City disappeared from view and the landscape transformed into green fields and small towns, I read about women reclaiming their wild instinct, their primal strength, their right to exist without asking permission. The wild woman does not ask permission to exist. I read on a page I marked carefully. She simply exists. For 4 hours, no one asked me for anything. No one asked what was for dinner, if there was coffee made, where their clean socks were, if I could watch the kids. No one expected anything from me except to occupy my seat and enjoy the journey. For the first time in 30 years, my time was completely my own. I arrived in Montreal at midday. The city spread out before my eyes like a gift I had given myself. Stone facades with wrought iron balconies that sloped down towards the St. Lawrence River, the smell of the water mixing with that of the bakeries. The hotel was small and cozy, in the Plateau Mont-Royal neighborhood. The room had a single bed with white linens, a desk by the window, and a bathroom that was all mine. I sat on the bed and looked around. It was the first time in my life I was in a hotel room completely alone. The first time I didn't have to share the bathroom, didn't have to worry if someone needed something, didn't have to plan activities thinking about what others would like. I checked my phone. I had 3 missed calls from Caroline and 2 texts. "Mom, did you get there okay? We're worried. Let us know you're all right." I read them but didn't reply immediately. For the first time in my life, I was in no hurry to reassure others about my well-being. I went out onto the street with no plan. No map, no schedule, no specific destination. I just started walking. Montreal welcomed me the way it welcomes lovers. Without haste, with generosity, revealing its secrets little by little. I walked the cobblestone streets of Old Montreal, got lost among the murals of Saint Laurent Boulevard, and climbed up and down the hills with no other purpose than the pleasure of moving my legs at the pace my body wanted. In a small bistro near the river, I ordered poutine and a local cider. The waiter, an older man with a white mustache, asked if I was waiting for someone. "No, I'm eating alone." "First time in Montreal?" "Yes." "And you came alone?" "I came alone." He looked at me with a smile that was anything but condescending. "Well, you've come at the best time. Montreal is best enjoyed when you don't have to explain to anyone why you're stopping to stare at a building for 20 minutes. He was right. During my meal, I watched the people passing by. Young couples taking selfies, tourists with huge backpacks, locals walking with the calm of someone who knows every stone of their city. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel watched, judged, or responsible for anything other than my own well-being. That afternoon, I visited a beautiful old bookstore in the Latin Quarter. Among the carved wooden shelves and winding staircases, I found a book of poetry by a Quebecois author. I read one poem in a low voice. I divide my time between the dream and life, like one who divides the bread on the kitchen table. I bought the book. It was the first time in years I had bought something just because I liked it, without thinking if a grandchild could use it for school or if Caroline would like it. That night, I had dinner at a small restaurant in my neighborhood. I asked for a table for one without feeling ashamed. The cider tasted like freedom. The waitress, a young woman with a French-Canadian accent, asked if I was okay dining alone. "I've never been better," I replied. "My grandmother also travels alone since my grandfather passed. She says it's when she has the most fun. Your grandmother is a wise woman. That's what I tell her. But my parents worry. They say at her age she should stay home, take it easy. And what do you think? I think if you can't do whatever you want at 70, when can you?" I walked back to the hotel slowly. The streets of Montreal were quiet, lit by lamps that cast golden circles on the cobblestones. I was in no hurry to get anywhere. I didn't have to get up early to make breakfast for anyone. I didn't have to plan the next day around the needs of others. In my room, I took a long bath in the small tub, with bath salts I had bought at a downtown pharmacy that smelled of eucalyptus and lavender. I stayed there until the water grew cold, feeling the tension of 30 years seep out of my muscles. Afterwards, I sat on the bed with the book of poems and my notebook. I wrote, "Dear Elizabeth, today you walked down streets you didn't know without asking anyone's permission. You ate alone without feeling incomplete. You bought a book of poems just because. You spoke with strangers who treated you like an interesting person, not like someone's mother or someone's grandmother. Today, you were simply you, and it was beautiful." The second day, I woke up without an alarm clock. The sun streamed through the window and woke me naturally at 9 in the morning. I stretched in bed in a way I hadn't in years. I had breakfast at the hotel. Coffee, toast with butter, strawberry jam, and time. Lots of time. That morning, I went to Mount Royal Park. I walked up the long path slowly, stopping when I needed to rest. without the pressure of keeping up with anyone else. From the top, Montreal spread out like a map of possibilities. Rows of triplexes, the river snaking towards the sea, bridges connecting the shores. Everything seemed possible from that height. I walked down and got lost in the streets again. In a small antique shop, I found a silver necklace with a tiny key. The owner, a woman in her 80s, told me her grandmother had made it. "What does the key open?" I asked her. "Whatever you want it to open, my dear. Keys always open something even if we don't know what it is." I bought the necklace. I put it on immediately. It felt heavy against my chest like a promise. That afternoon, on the bank of the St. Lawrence, I sat on a bench and called Caroline. "Mom, finally. Are you okay? Where have you been?" "I'm in Montreal, Caroline. Like I told you. But you weren't answering. We were so worried. I was busy." "Busy with what?" "Living." There was a pause. "What's Montreal like?" "Beautiful. And peaceful. And mine." "Yours?" "It's the first time I've been in a place that's just mine, Caroline. Where nobody knows me as someone's mother. Where I can just be Elizabeth." "Do you feel lonely?" I thought for a moment as I watched the gulls fly over the river. "No, Caroline. I feel accompanied. By myself." "When do you come back?" "Thursday afternoon. And after that?" "After that, we'll see." That night I had dinner in a small club where a folk singer was playing. A middle-aged woman dressed in black sang in French about longing, about that sweet melancholy that feels so universal. Her words spoke of losses that become gains, of loneliness that becomes companionship, of silences that say more than words. I understood every note, every pause, every sigh. I understood that I had come to Montreal not to run away from my life, but to find it. On the last day, my last day of being just Elizabeth before going back to being a mother and grandmother, I woke up with a strange sense of peace. I dressed slowly, choosing each item not for its practicality, but for how it made me feel. I put on the necklace with the small key and went for one last walk through the streets of Montreal. At the Jean Talon market, I bought cheese, wine, and bread. I had a picnic for one in the gardens of Mount Royal Park. As I ate, watching the city stretch towards the horizon, I knew that something had changed forever. It wasn't that I no longer loved my children or my grandchildren. I loved them as much as ever, but I had recovered something I had lost without realizing it. Love for myself. I had found Elizabeth again, and I knew now that I would never let her disappear again. On the train back to New York, as the Canadian landscape said goodbye through the window, I wrote a list in my notebook. Things I learned in Montreal. I can travel alone and enjoy it. I like waking up without a rush. I like poetry. I can eat alone in restaurants without feeling awkward. I like buying beautiful things for myself. I can talk to strangers and have them treat me like an interesting person. Elizabeth exists, independent of being a mother or grandmother. I deserve to be happy in my own right, not just when others are happy. Self-love is not selfishness. It is never too late to start living your own life. The train arrived in New York at 8 o'clock on Thursday evening. When I stepped onto the platform at Penn Station, I was no longer the same woman who had left 4 days earlier. I was Elizabeth, simply Elizabeth, and that was more than enough. 3 months after returning from Montreal, my life had changed in ways I never would have imagined. Caroline now called to ask how I was, not to ask me to watch the kids. Daniel had started visiting on Sundays, not because he needed something, but because, as he put it, he missed talking to me. But the biggest change wasn't in them, it was in me. This October morning, as I was making my quiet breakfast, it was a sacred ritual now. Coffee from the Italian press, toast with olive oil, classical music in the background. The doorbell rang. It was Alex. Alone, with his school backpack and the look of someone who has made an important decision. "Hi, Grandma." "Alex, what are you doing here? Aren't you supposed to be in school?" "Yeah, but I got permission to come see you. I need to talk to you." He sat on the living room sofa, in the same spot where 3 months ago his mother had cried, asking me why I had changed so much. "What's wrong, my love?" "Grandma, are you mad at me?" The question went straight to my chest. I sat down next to him. "Why would I ever be mad at you? Because you don't come over like you used to. Because Mom says you have your own life now. And I miss you. I took his hands in mine. His nails were a little dirty, like any 12-year-old boy's. And he had a small scrape on one knuckle. Alex, look at me. I could never, ever be mad at you. Not you or Sophia. Then why don't you come over as much? Because I've learned something very important, sweetie. I've learned that loving someone doesn't mean being available for them 24 hours a day. He looked at me with the confused expression kids get when adults say complicated things. I don't get it. Okay. Do you love your best friend at school? Yeah, Pablo. And are you with Pablo all day, every day? No, of course not. Does that mean you don't love him? No. It means I have other friends and other things to do. Exactly. I love you just as much as always, Alex. But I also have other things to do. Other parts of me that need attention. He thought for a moment. Like what? Like going to pottery class on Tuesdays. Like reading books I enjoy. Like traveling alone to places I want to see. You do pottery? Yes, and I'm terrible at it, but I have a lot of fun. He laughed. Can I see something you made? I went to the bedroom and brought back a lopsided bowl I had made the week before. It was blue and white, completely uneven, but I loved it. That's so cool. Can you teach me? Of course, but it would have to be on a day when you don't have school, and we'd have to ask your mom's permission. Okay. Grandma, can I ask you something? Anything. Why did Mom and Dad get so mad when you said you wanted to have your own life? His question was so direct, so honest, that I paused for a moment, thinking how to answer without speaking ill of his parents. Alex, do you know that before I was your grandmother, I was just Elizabeth? No. Well, I was. For 34 years, I was just Elizabeth. I worked, I had friends, I read books, I traveled, and then I had your mom and your uncle, and I became Mom. And when you and Sophia were born, I became Grandma. Is that bad? No, my love. That's wonderful. Being a mom and a grandma are the most beautiful things that ever happened to me. But for a long time, I forgot about Elizabeth. And now you found her? Yes. Now I've found her. And it turns out that Elizabeth and Grandma can be the same person. They can coexist. Alex nodded, as if he understood perfectly. Grandma, can I come visit some Saturdays? To do stuff with you? Just the two of us. I would love that. But you'd have to come because you want to be with me. Not because your parents don't know what to do with you. I want to be with you. I like how you smell now. How do I smell now? Like flowers and something sweet. You used to smell like Mom when she's stressed. His observation surprised me. Children notice things that adults miss. You know what, Alex? I think I smell like happiness. That afternoon, I walked Alex to school and arranged to meet Caroline for coffee. We met at our usual spot. But this time, the dynamic was different. How is he? Caroline asked as we sat down. Alex? He's fine. Worried, but fine. Worried about what? That I'm mad at him. That I don't love him anymore. Caroline looked down. Mom, I never wanted the kids to think that. I know, Caroline. But that's what happened when you told them you didn't need me anymore. But I didn't know how to explain to them that you had changed. I haven't changed, Caroline. I've grown. It's different. Caroline ordered a black coffee. I ordered a chamomile tea with honey. I used to always order whatever she was having. Now I ordered what I felt like. Mom, I want to apologize. For what? For not seeing you. For taking you for granted. For treating you like you were a piece of furniture that was always just there. Her words were sincere, and I could tell she had been thinking about all of this a lot. I accept your apology, Caroline, but I need you to understand that I can't go back to being the grandmother who was available 24/7. I understand. It's just, I miss having you around. You can have me around, but around doesn't mean I live for you. What does it mean then? It means that when we're together, it's because we both want to be. When I help you, it's because I can help. Not because it's my obligation or your last resort. Caroline nodded. You know what hurts the most, Mom? Tell me that for years I thought everything you did for us was normal, like it was your job. And it was, Caroline. For a long time, taking care of you was my job, my only job. Do you regret it? I don't regret taking care of you. I regret forgetting to take care of myself. Caroline was quiet for a moment, stirring the sugar in her coffee. Mom, can I ask you something? Of course. Are you happier now? The question caught me by surprise, not because it was difficult, but because it was simple. Yes, Caroline, I am happier. Even seeing the grandkids less? I see them less, but I enjoy them more. When I see Alex and Sophia now, it's because I want to see them, not because I have to, and that makes every moment more precious. Caroline started to cry softly. Why are you crying? Because I feel sad. I feel sad that you had to go to Montreal by yourself to be happy. Caroline, don't cry about that. Montreal wasn't a punishment. It was a gift I gave myself. Are you going back? Yes, in the spring. This time I want to see the gardens in bloom. Can I come with you? Her question surprised me. Do you really want to come? Yes. I want to meet the Elizabeth you discovered in Montreal. Caroline, Elizabeth was always here. She was just hidden underneath the mother and the grandmother. 6 months later, I'm writing this in my journal while I wait for Caroline and the kids to arrive for lunch. But this time is different. They're coming because it's Caroline's birthday, because they want to celebrate with me, because they've decided they want to spend time with me. I've made her favorite meal, but I bought dessert from the bakery because I no longer feel the need to make everything from scratch to prove my love. Daniel is coming too, with his new girlfriend, a lovely woman who treats me like an interesting person, not like her boyfriend's mother. And for the first time in years, we're going to be a family that chooses to be together. I've learned so much in these months. I've learned that love you have to beg for isn't real love. I've learned that being alone is not the same as being lonely. I've learned that it's never too late to start living your own life. I've learned that grandchildren can love a grandmother who isn't available 24 hours a day. I've learned that my children respect me more now that I respect myself. But most of all, I've learned that Elizabeth, that woman I had buried under 30 years of sacrifice, had a lot to offer the world. She had curiosity, she had a desire to learn, she had a right to be happy. The doorbell rings. It's them. But before I open it, I look at myself in the hallway mirror. I see a 67-year-old woman wearing a necklace with a small silver key, whose nails are painted a soft pink, who is smiling because she is genuinely happy to see her family. I see Elizabeth, and I like what I see. I open the door, and Sophia runs to me. Grandma, can you show me the new pot you made? Of course, my love. But first, a proper hello. She hugs me, and in her hug, there is no need, no dependency. There is pure affection. Caroline comes in behind her with a smile I haven't seen in months. Happy birthday, sweetie. Thanks, Mom. By the way, is that invitation to Montreal still open? Of course, but we'd have to take the train, and we'd have to stay in the same hotel I stayed in, and we'd have to eat at the bistro that makes the best poutine in the city. Sounds perfect. As we eat, I realize the conversation is different. They ask me about my pottery class, about the book I'm reading, about my plans for the weekend. They ask about Elizabeth, not just about Grandma. And when they leave, after a lunch full of laughter and real conversation, I don't feel empty like I used to. I don't wait for them to need me again. I feel full of shared love, not begged for, full of time well spent, not given out of obligation. That night, before I go to sleep, I write in my journal, Dear Elizabeth, today you had your family over, and it was beautiful. But when they left, you didn't disappear. You are still here. You are still you. And that, my dear Elizabeth, is the greatest triumph of all. And now, a question for you who have listened to my story. Have you ever experienced anything like this? Do you know someone who has had to rediscover themselves after years of giving their all to others? Tell me in the comments. And if this story touched your heart, if you think it could help someone who needs it, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Maybe these words will reach exactly the person who needs to hear them, because it is never ever too late to start living your own life.